In today's recording, I'm going to show you a few of the Prospector staff resources. So you go to the Colorado Alliance homepage, www.coalliance.org, and then you'll see the link for Prospector to the left. And you're going to notice the items on the right-hand side of the screen. So what we've done is we've broken it up into two categories. We have the document delivery resources, which, circulation issues, and then we also have cataloging and reference resources. And those are the two main Prospector committees. We also have a couple of other things on this menu that I'll cover. One is the Prospector FAQ, which is a knowledge base of Prospector type questions that have come up, and also the statistics section. So we'll start out with document delivery. And some of you may know of been to this website, but I just want to point out a couple of important resources. The committee member list is important. We update that quite often because there's always been staff changes. So if you need a list of your contact for another library, this is where to go to get that. We also have, if you click here, you can join the document delivery listserv. So if you have new staff that want to join the list, that's where you do it. And we also keep the minutes posted here. And then you'll notice there's a couple of training resources where we've done another video on just the basic Prospector Prospector overview, and then I'll talk later about the Prospector FAQ. And then there's also some policy documents. The one that is used quite often is this Prospector reconciliation policy, and so this is a few years ago, Prospector libraries decided that instead of trying to replace each other's lost items, it was easier to just make the best effort to find items at the end of the year, and so they do this reconciliation process. And to figure out how that works and the steps you take to do that, this is where you'll get that policy. And I won't go over every single one of these documents, but just so that you know, these are places where you can find these types of policies. The Prospector loan rules are here too, and we also have some best practices that libraries have come up with for things like, barcoding books, before you send them out. So these are real procedural type things. And the committee, I think annually, or even maybe more often, goes through those best practices and looks to see if we need to add or delete anything. Under technical documentation, we have things like different item barcode identifier list, library identification codes, and this is where you'll find things like the box code or agency codes that are assigned by III to different libraries, and also things like the courier codes, which you probably have that, but it's a place where we have all of these things for each of the libraries in Prospector. We also have patron and item types here, so that if you're doing any kind of mapping, we have the values that you would map to centrally. Also the circulation status codes are here. And then we have procedural documents where you can see things like the circulation setup checklist for new libraries. Also in Prospector we lend Springer ebooks. This publisher has allowed libraries to lend their ebooks freely through Prospector, and so we have instructions on how that works and the contacts for the borrowing libraries for Springer ebooks. So those are some really useful documents for document delivery stuff. And then the next key area is cataloging reference resources, and this is going to be very similar, just for a different committee. Under the general information, we have things like the committee list and listserv and minutes. We also have the training resources area, and then cataloging, or I should say, a group of Prospector libraries are participating in a demand-driven acquisitions like consortial project, and so we have some instructions about that process there. We also have, I really want to point out, best practices for electronic resources and record loading, and these are really great documents if you have new catalogers or people who have just forgotten or just aren't aware of what standards we use for loading documents into Prospector, because as you know, if we're loading 42 different libraries, it can get kind of chaotic, and so we have some kind of more specific instructions on how to load those documents. So those are definitely worth, a lot of these are worth printing off and just making sure you're aware of these principles if you're a cataloging librarian. And then under codes and tags, we have other things for, you know, identification type of documents. So library load priority encoding. So one of the ways of determining the master record in Prospector is the encoding level. And so you'll, for catalogers, this will make a lot of sense, but you can figure out, you know, from this document we let you know the priority at the level of libraries or the different encoding levels that you can assign to records. And we also have like the overlay priority table, which will determine, helps to determine which library will be the master record holder in Prospector. Also InReach patron and I-type codes, and so there's a little bit of overlap there with the document delivery because some of these things that we have in Prospector apply to both committees. So this is where you'll find lots of those catalog reference resources. And now I want to move over to the Prospector FAQ. And so this site is basically a summary or a compilation of a lot of questions that have been asked over the years and by library staff. And so what we've tried to do is consolidate a lot of those questions and add them to the FAQ because they're things that might come up again. And so it's really a knowledge base of the listserv. We've added more document delivery items and cataloging reference. We're still working on that area. But you'll notice in this site, it's kind of set up like a lot of websites today where you search for things, but there we have the tag cloud where you can go by subject and, you know, patron requests, for example. And, you know, obviously we have tons of stuff on hold, so you'd see a lot more information if you click on that. And then they're just basically designed as FAQs. Will Prospector place holds on items that are already requested? For example, that's one question, and then you can see the answer to this question, and then you can also see some related entries. So it's just very simple and easy to use, and just things that have come up throughout the years with Prospector. Now this site is not meant to replace like III documentation or the III clearinghouse. It's more of a Prospector FAQ that relates to just our Prospector issues. And you can also look at this if you go to all categories. You can get a sense of what the scope of the site is. And then you can see here that with cataloging, we're still trying to build resources in this area. And if you do have questions that you would like to see in this FAQ or things that you have questions about, post them to the listserv, or you can actually send them to us, particularly if you have the answer. That's always nice. But anyway, if you do have questions, definitely let us know, because those are the kinds of things we want to capture into this FAQ to make it a better resource for staff. So that's another place where you can get information about Prospector. And then finally, I want to talk about the statistics. So I'm going to go back to our Prospector staff website and show you the link to statistics. And so there's some interesting stats on here. First, we have the fulfillment report, which shows the number of fulfillments per library, and it's a grid. I'll just go ahead and open it up. And you'll notice, I don't know if you caught that screen before, but this report, you have to have this special port open, and it does run a little Java application here too. But assuming you can get to this 4444 port, you can look at the statistics. And what's nice, these come right from III, but it's very easy to just, you know, specify a certain time frame. You know, for example, last month. And then you can look at the different, you can see the requests. And so requests are just what was requested, but fulfillments are actually what was actually delivered from the lending library to the borrowing library. And you can look at things like cancellations and transfers. So these are really nice. You can download them, and they download as I want to say a pipe delimited file that you can open up into Excel and create like a spreadsheet. And so here it shows you, you know, like the owning library and the lending libraries and how much each is borrowed from each library. And then you can see the lend to borrow ratio. And then anything over a 1.0 is a net lender, anything below that is a net borrower. And so you can get an idea of the top lenders and borrowers in Prospector and individual stats for your own library and who you're lending to. The one thing I would say is to make sure you look at a pretty lengthy time frame. It really doesn't help to look at just 1 week of borrowing and lending because it's going to be skewed quite a bit. But if you decide, you might want to do a year to date is always a good one to look at, just to get a decent amount of time so that you can get kind of an average on the lending and borrowing side. So that's one set of statistics. Let me go back to the page here. And then the other stats that we have are actually, so what we've done is we've done some year-to-dates and just put them into a spreadsheet so you can actually, this is sort of a nice summary. I'll go ahead and download this one just to show you what it is. So you can see here, this is January through July of 2013, and it gives us the lending to borrowing ratio for each site, plus the gross number of lends and borrows. So that's just a more succinct report that we created, and we try to do those sort of when we have the document delivery and cataloging reference meetings so people can get an idea of how those statistics are. The next set of stats are the bibliographic and item quarterly statistics, and this is more the size of the Prospector database in terms of bib records and item records. The other thing that this set of statistics is, it shows you where one library, two libraries, and so forth own a item in Prospector, so you can get a sense of the uniqueness of Prospector, and so that's kind of an interesting report. And it does give you, again, like the sheer number of records, so we can just look at one of these. And these come directly from III, and then we just post them on our website. So these you can actually run yourself. You're kind of, we just post the report. So you can see, get an idea of, total bib records loaded from the site, 23 million, over 23 million. And then, the number of total master bib records is 12 million. And then you can see that our item, these are kind of interesting numbers. And then the item records, so this is all the items attached to those bibs, is over 30 million items in Prospector. So it's interesting, you can get an idea of the size of the catalog. You can also see things like the percent held of own records, so 30%. You can. This is where we look at the kind of the uniqueness of different libraries of different items in Prospector. So it just gives you an idea of how unique the collection is and how many are held by only one library, the number of titles. So those are the statistics, and I believe that's it. So we have quite a few that go all the way back to 2006. So it's quite a bit. Usually these come out on a quarterly basis. So that's the other area of Prospector I wanted to talk about today, and I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.